Hi, everybody. It's Mio.
Good evening.
Hey everyone.
Hi.
Hi Mio.
Hi.
Ellen. Hey Caitlin. Hey Tiffany.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Tiffany.
Brian will not be joining. He got caught up in Milton and is stuck in traffic.
Ooh,
Okay.
that sounds awful.
I know, right? South of Boston. What's worse than being in Boston? Being south of Boston.
Really. Ugh.
Oh boy. Hold on. I'm going to mute. My dog is playing with a squeaky toy.
Hi, folks. Sorry to be late.
Hi, Karen.
Hey Karen. Hey, do we have any guests on?
We have Tiffany from the Pettingill House.
Yeah. Any other community
No.
members? Okay.
No.
All right, great.
But we're live and we are recording.
Okay.
But there's no community members present
Including,
Do we
the,
have-
other than Tiffany.
including
do
the
we have a quorum?
squeaking nose.
Yeah, the squeak. I'm so sorry. Oh my God. Of course I have to play right under where I'm sitting. We
That's
sold
one
our
happy
desk,
dog.
so I'm stuck here in the kitchen.
Oh, gosh.
Oh,
Well, maybe we should get started. And I'm going to chair this meeting tonight as best I can, even though Suzanne's been doing such a great job. We have an agenda, but Caitlin just informed me that the mayor is not going to be able to join us. So we might want to think about some other way to acknowledge all the years that we worked together with her on the trust, a card or something, but we don't need to get into that here. But just wanted to recognize that we were hoping that she would be with us tonight, but unfortunately she has other meeting commitments. So I think that the real meat of our agenda is to go back to our discussion of our proposed rental assistance programs. We talked last time about expanding from just a COVID emergency relief program to some rental assistance for down payment or, no, wait a minute, not home ownership, first and last month's rent, and also possibly rent arrears. And Caitlin, working with Pettingill, put together some program guidelines. I don't know if folks have had a chance to look at them. I've looked at them pretty briefly. In Caitlin's staff report, she described, what we were envisioning based on last meeting's discussions. So, and we have Tiffany here to talk about, her thoughts on the programs, and also she provided a report with some information for us to take a look at. So I guess, Tiffany, maybe we should pass it over to you to hear your thoughts on what we're proposing and how you structured that. You have 3 different application forms.
Yes. So Caitlin Sierra Partland, our Director of Development and Programs, and myself sat down to look at all 3 applications, because we felt like it needed to be like 3 separate. So it was very clear about what funding was available. And so we're in the process of developing an actual individual page for the city of Newburyport for rental assistance. I know it was under our COVID funding, but now that it's been expanded, it will have the guidelines that Caitlin has provided, and then it will have the criteria of for a current rent or their arrears, for that getting into a new rental for that first and last, and brokerage fee, and then the COVID. So it's very specific about what the criteria is and what they could possibly qualify for. And then there will be a hyperlink to then direct them to an application online, which Sierra is developing, very similar to the one that we have online now. It's a fillable application, and you can upload documents as far as like a lease, your license, like all of those verifications that are needed. And obviously, if someone doesn't have the ability to complete it online, we can meet them in person and assist with the application or send it in the mail. So that's kind of where we're at right now. But after looking at it, I think it's pretty straightforward as far as the eligibility, that, especially the arrears, that it is a temporary barrier and that they need to provide documentation that they can self-sustain. We would verify like what the barrier was, and that's been rectified. And then, again, work with the landlord on getting their landlord verification information and verifying the arrearages.
Can I just ask a question? I looked at the applications, I think, but they looked exactly the same. They both had future rent and current rent arrears.
Yep. So I guess
What-
the way that I put these together, so there's 3 separate sets of guidelines and applications. Pet and Gail thought that this would be easier to, I think, manage and to build their web portal online application process. The purpose is the same for each of the guidelines. And then if you go down to the eligibility for the different program guidelines, I guess options, eligibility is different and is what is required different. So this whole purpose part, that's all going to be the same. I can change that if it's confusing.
And that's what
No,
we would do on the website, that it would just have that overarching purpose.
Yeah.
And then the current rent or arrears would have the eligibility with the hyperlink, then the future rent would have the eligibility guidelines with the hyperlink, and then the COVID relief with the eligibility and hyperlink. So it would be clear, more clear,
Yeah.
Okay,
and not seem so duplicative.
Right.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
the COVID rental relief application and guidelines, that's going to stay, exactly the same. And it's just basically adding the future rent, which is the first, last month and broker fee, and then current rent, is also the other option. But you have to show that you're, income eligible, but also are experiencing some sort of temporary barrier. And we give a few or several examples. So curious to hear your feedback and if this kind of meets, I guess, the spirit of what you all want to have the program be like.
I think you did
you're
a
gonna
nice
ask
job.
us to think about whether the benefit limit of 4,500 is appropriate.
Mhm.
That is I think one concern is that might be a little high, because if you think about it, 4,500 into 80,000, that's not going to go very far, I don't think. So I'm wondering if this is the appropriate amount.
It's looking like from the information from Pettingill that came this afternoon, those amounts were smaller, so it's up to 4,500. We don't have to give that amount, right? So it's what the people require for the rent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did those people ask for more than that, or did we have a limit that limited them from asking for more if they needed it on the previous program?
Previous program is the limit is 4,500 in assistance.
Okay, and have we found that people have mostly gone up to 4,500, or have they been lower?
I guess I would ask Tiffany, do you have that handy?
Because I'm just thinking that 4,500 gives us some flexibility if there is a case where they need more. Sorry, Tiffany, go ahead.
Let's see. So not everyone went up to the 4,500 on the first round of COVID funding, and overall it seems sufficient because we were working with Raft. Raft still has a backlog. We just were on the phone with them the other day, it's, 6 to 8 weeks before sometimes the case is even assigned. So some of this is, working with the landlord where we want to make sure that they're stabilized in their home. So the 45 seems like it has been sufficient, because obviously if they're in arrears above and beyond that, we're needing to definitely, reach out to Raft, reach out to maybe some other agencies. But I found that is definitely sufficient.
When you say sufficient, do you mean it's not too much either, right?
Well, and it's
a good amount.
again, it's based on need, right? And it's, if they need it up to 4,500, right? Not everyone
Yeah.
has been awarded 1,500 per month up to the 4,500. Like,
Yeah.
right, the three that recently were awarded with this new funding, it was not up to the 4,500 because it was not needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do keep it open though, like if they're, because they're maybe getting back to work, their hours are increasing, that if they need additional assistance, that it is available up to 4,500, but they still have to prove, like we still go through the process of, reassessing and getting updated information.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not an automatic that, it's everyone gets 4,500. Again, it's based on need.
Right.
We're not just handing out, $4,500. Again, we're assessing the full picture.
Right.
Erin, did you have something you wanted to say?
Two things. First, I think the 4,500 from everything Tiffany and Mary just said, I think it's fine. And it's consistent with the COVID relief program. And it does say up to 4,500. So obviously it's not, if they don't need it, they don't need that much. I think this looks great. My one comment is that I wonder if it needs to be clarified somewhere, that I know you say in it short-term relief, temporary barrier, but does it need to be clear, like in the eligibility or somewhere, that the person or the family will be able to continue living there afterwards? That there's that this is getting them over the hump, but it's not like we'll pay this and then they're going to get evicted 2 months later. And I guess I would partly ask Tiffany, I mean, if this is similar to the wording we've had before and it hasn't been an issue, then I'm probably being overly particular about it. I just want to make sure people didn't feel they were eligible, even if, like if it's temporary, I don't know how to say it. Let's say somebody's behind in their rent by 4,500 because they lost their job, but they still don't have a job. So even if we pay this 4,500 and get them through, say, 3 months of rent, what are they going to do next month? That kind of thing.
Right.
Kind
So
of feasibility analysis.
But it's also based on self-sustainability beyond this one time.
Okay, so that's clear that it is self-sustainability after that. Okay.
Well, and maybe it should, like you're saying, maybe it should be, there should be some verbiage. But when we do that initial, the application is submitted and we're looking at them, we do say that, but I think that it should be maybe more clear.
And maybe it should be included in some, language there, just because I wouldn't want someone to feel, well, hey, I meet the criteria the way it's laid out here. This is a temporary thing. I hope to get a job soon. But, if they really don't have any prospects, sort of that sustainability thing, to put that in there somehow.
You
Do
don't
we
think the
think
cap
we wanna
will
lim-
cover that? Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Do you think that the cap will further solidify that point that they can only get X number of dollars?
No, I don't. I'm talking about something else, because I feel like they could say, my rent's 1,500 a month. I'm 3 months behind. I want this 4,500. I'm applying for it, but actually have no way to pay that 1,500 after the next month, which means to me, we just sort of wasted the money. We didn't help somebody sustain their home. We just helped them pay off their landlord, but they're still going to get evicted. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Well, we have them require, Pettingill is going to require a copy of the current lease for documentation from landlord. Should we require something else that kind of shows that they're gonna, I guess, upon receiving of payment, that they're gonna continue to stay in that spot?
It's more like they're looking for a job, or they
Yeah,
have prospects, right?
Right.
Or maybe it's just under program limits and guidance that something like the grant must somehow make the difference or allow the tenant to continue their tenancy afterwards, something.
okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
I'll
a
add that in.
little- Just, what do you mean by that exactly? They would continue, but if they didn't have the money, what would happen?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I feel like if someone, let's say someone's, and this may sound harsh, but let's say someone's in a really bad position, okay? They lost their job, they really have no income. They owe 3 months rent at $1,500 a month. On the one hand, it's like, yeah, we want to help them because they owe that money. But on the other hand, if they still don't have a job, if that was for January, February, March, they still don't have a job in April, May, and June, they're still going to get evicted. So in a way, we ended up sort of wasting that money because it didn't help them sustain their tenancy when maybe it would have helped somebody else. It paid the landlord, which, is good for the landlord, but it didn't really help them stay there. So I more envision it's someone who maybe they had a temporary job loss, but now they're working again. So they're behind on their rent, but they'll be able to pay it going forward.
Okay. Yep, you're looking at the prospects for the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Are we helping them
good.
sustain their tenancy, basically?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, is it that we want them to demonstrate that they have a plan for getting back to being able to, like Tiffany said, self-sustainability? Because if somebody's unemployed, somebody lost their job and they're in arrears, I would think that they would say, oh yeah, I'm working on getting a job. Right? And so we want them to, sort of provide some, description of what their plan is. I mean, it's not like we need anything elaborate, but we want some kind of indication that they have a plan to get back on track.
And we do
Huh.
require that. So if
Yeah.
they're getting back to work, it's an employer letter. Like, so if they haven't started, it's an employer letter describing, how many hours at what rate, because we want to see that they can self-sustain beyond this arrearage assistance to get in. Because like the point's well taken, right? It's stabilization, but they need to stabilize beyond. And we do, again, it's like, have they maximized all their income benefits? Do they qualify for other things that they haven't applied for? So we're helping with all of that.
So maybe I'll add, so it's kind of two things. So we want the description of the temporary barrier that's going on, or, the hardship, but also, I guess, the plan to what happens when this grant money is used. What's the next step? Something like that. What grant is, to allow for continued, something continued or sustainable, some kind of narrative to submit with this application in terms of next steps, and also the temporary barrier.
That sounds good.
Okay.
And to some degree, it might be, them working with Pettingill
Right.
to,
Right.
stabilize. They, maybe they need some support, or maybe they don't. You're this whole range of types of situations, right? Some people will need support and some people won't.
Yeah, and I trust that Pettingill and that Tiffany are figuring that out. You've done that so far, and you'll continue to do that for people. My concern was just that it was clear in this notice so that so that people understand that, basically, that's the purpose. And, we do want to try to stabilize the tenancy.
Mhm. That's great. I'm glad you brought that up. I feel personally about the 4,500. that, you know, if we obligate all these funds, we can do what we did before, which was use some of our resources to expand the pot and then go back to the CPC to make a request to be reimbursed. So I feel like we should target the dollar amount on what we think is the right number to meet, you know, the need as we see the program, rather than worrying about, is this going to go far enough?
It's still 20 families, which is significant, I think, for
Mhm.
our city. It's a good number.
And that's if they all use 4,500, but it doesn't look
Exactly.
like they are,
Right,
so,
right.
yeah, yep. D-
I guess the other thing is I'm showing you, so the next, I guess, new part of this program is, you know, so we just talked about the current rent, but also future rent, which is a little more straightforward, first, last month, and broker fee. You know, it may not cover that entire first month's last and broker fee, but I think it will cover the majority of it. So we'll keep this amount 45 for that as well. The one thing I did want to ask about is under program and limits. At the last meeting, we had talked about how one of the limits is the rent cannot exceed 50% of the monthly income. Is that correct? We want to keep that in there?
I'm not remembering exactly. I feel like the reasoning would be that, again, if someone's paying more than 50%, they're probably not, it's probably not sustainable.
Right.
Yeah,
So I'll keep that in there. That sounds good.
Yep.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there might be a situation where they have a plan for a new job that's going to raise their household income, you know, so we might eventually need some flexibility there, but I think as a rule of thumb, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
It
and I mean,
does.
just to remember, these are guidelines, and
Yep.
and you know, there are going to be other factors that come into play, and that's perfectly okay.
and when they apply, they may be under the 50 or over the 50%. But they, you know, in the future, they'll be back to what they were. I
Right.
think you could look at their old income receipts or whatever. The other thing I thought maybe we could add to the applications, because we talk about losing transportation or vouchers for daycare, things like that. When we ask for on the application for backup information, is that already done? I think we should ask for the bill for the car repairs or estimate of daycare costs or something like that.
Well, we asked for the description of the temporary barrier or need in a summary format, but perhaps I should also say any, you know, backup documentation that they want to provide or is required by Pettingill House. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I'll add that in there. Thank you. Right, but so Pettingill, you know, has a tool to verify if they need to. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Great.
This is all great feedback, you guys. Thank you.
You did a really good job.
It's really exciting, and I'm thinking that, you know, we have Sierra working on the online, you know, portal application process, and I think hopefully this would be ready to launch in January. Do you think that's doable, Tiffany?
Yes, I talked to Sierra today. She thinks that everything can be ready to go, and we can send links so the committee can look at it before it gets obviously published to the public. Again, because it's very similar applications. It's just creating the forms.
Excellent. So I'm wondering, as we talk, whether we want to raise some public awareness about this new initiative. I know that Pettingill and the city have worked hard at getting, the information out about this program during COVID times, during the peak of COVID. But, the program's evolving, and we do have a story to tell about what we were able to do over the last year. And, I don't know whether it'd be great to have a little article in the Daily News or something, just A, to tell the story, and B, to get the word out. So something for us to think about.
And in that, I completely agree, but I would really like to get on the Planning and Development Committee schedule and just give them a heads up as to what, before this gets launched, kind of let them know it's coming. I think they'd appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that we can answer any questions that they might have.
Yep.
Right. So let's, do you want to try to do that in December, or how often does that committee meet? Is it monthly?
Yeah, I mean, they're winding down, and they're going to be new committee assignments in January. So I'm thinking maybe we get them at, the beginning of the year once the permanent members are, well, not permanent, but the newest members are seated.
That makes sense. I think that that sort of leads us to another discussion about sort of some of our goals for the trust for the new year, including building our relationships with that committee. But just to make sure that we wrap up on this discussion, do we have any other questions for Tiffany? I think there was a little spreadsheet on, was it families that are recently getting assistance or waiting for assistance, or?
Yeah, so this was the new round, the 25,000. So that was the most updated spreadsheet. Yeah, so there was 3 households, which included 3 elders, 1 adult, and 2 children, totaling $77,430 in assistance for those 3 households.
Okay.
So it's Caitlin. I'm thinking that it makes sense that I guess we have the CPA pot of money and then the CARES Act pot of money, that we would use the CARES Act funds to continue to fund the COVID relief until those are all gone. And then that would kind of go back over to the CPA funds. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's
Okay.
great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Caitlin.
And I have a draft MOU, which is the one we've been using for the past 2 grants for the Pettingill House. So I'll make sure to also send that to Tiffany and I guess Susanna Madeline to take a look at, so that we can get the administration fees all set up, which I think we said, was it 10% or 10,000 off of the 90? Is that right?
I think we did 10%, or you mean 10% up to 10,000? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just curious, is it 10% of 90,000 or is it just the full 10,000? I guess the question is it for the administration fee part? We've been doing, I think, 10%. So it would be, I guess, 9,000 for the administration, and that's what the MOU would say. Is that right?
Yeah, because our initial investment was 100,000,
Yep.
right? Yeah,
Yep.
and we did 10%. Okay.
Yep.
Does that, all right, as long as everyone's in agreement.
Okay.
Sounds
Is
good
that-
to me.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if we want to get the word out on the new program. Do you normally contact, like, besides Pettingill, are there other nonprofits that you contact to let them know that we have this new program for people, like the Crisis Center? I don't know, just other places in town that might service people, or even the churches?
Yeah, we had a really good distribution list, I think, kind of PR campaign for the COVID relief. So I think we would just use those same outlets, and Pettingill has a really wide distribution list that they use all the time. So we would continue to
great.
use that, and our city distribution list as well.
Okay, great.
And I think I also called some of the nonprofit partners as well, and churches. And so I'll do that again with this.
Sounds good.
Okay. Excellent. Anything else for Tiffany?
Not for me.
Nope.
No, but just to say thank you again, as we always do, because
Yeah.
it's really great that you run this. I really appreciate it.
Well,
Yes.
thank you. And like I had said before, it's great that, this money is being put forward by the Housing Trust to help stabilize Newburyport families. It's greatly needed in these difficult times. People kind of think we're getting back to normal, but there's still a lot of, individuals and families that are struggling. So thank you again for providing this relief. So
Well, thank you.
I know that Caitlin is updating some of the verbiage. I'll work with Sierra, and then once that's finalized, we'll send it out so you can look at the final product that we have that we would put up on our website. And I know that you want to, meet with planning and developing, so we'll wait for the go ahead, but we'll provide everything from our end to the committee.
Sounds good. And I
Alright.
guess I would say, while we're waiting, if there's some emergency, let us know.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful holiday, everyone.
Thank you.
You as well.
Yeah.
You too. Okay, so in terms of our agenda, we just have approval of the minutes and next meeting date, but I also wanted to just talk very briefly about discussion that Suzanne and I and Caitlin had a couple of weeks ago, where we talked about some of our goals for the next year. I think it would be great to have, work plan is maybe too highfalutin a phrase, but, just some goals for the new year and some of the things that we hope to accomplish. And so I'm just looking at my notes. One of them is to have more visibility, and that gets back to what Suzanne was talking about in terms of having some regular communication with the Planning and Development Committee so that the City Council has a better sense of who we are and what we're seeking to accomplish. Another thing would be to stay current on what's happening with the Brown School. Is there any way that we can play a role? Third was implementing the rental assistance program that we've just been talking about. Another is looking at the city's housing rehab program. We touched on this at our last meeting. Karen, I don't think you were there, but we were talking about, oh, maybe you were.
Like I was, but maybe I wasn't.
Okay.
I think it was at the workshop. We talked about it, maybe. At the workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But looking at the housing rehab program that the city has been running for a number of years, and, is there some way to make it more effective? Because we feel like folks aren't taking advantage of it. And, are there things that, ways that it needs to be tweaked? And then lastly, according to my notes, working on updating the housing production plan, which is going to be expiring, I think, in 2023. And Caitlin sent us a link to that, and is looking at what consultants might be available to help us do that work. We don't think that the Regional Planning Commission is going to be doing that again, although it's still a possibility. And I think that working on updating our housing production plan will be a great way for the trust to come together as a group to, understand housing needs, local housing needs, and to also interface with the broader community in terms of, sharing the data that we find and doing some education, which is one of the things that we did the last time we updated the housing production plan. So we were hoping to have our next meeting in person, if possible, if people feel comfortable with that. It would be a great way for us to get to know each other better and to spend a little time about, sort of orienting new members to what the trust has been working on in the past. And like I was talking about, some of our goals for the future, and just sort of how to move forward. What is our role in the community, and how do we interface with the development community and things like that. So that's what I was hoping we would be able to schedule for our next meeting, sort of had a broader discussion. And like I said, ideally to do it in person if people feel comfortable with that.
I think that's a great idea.
Same. I think too, if we look at setting a goal or a deliverable for each quarter and a visibility activity for each quarter, we can at least, stay on track, and it'll keep us thinking and out in front. If we schedule it in, then we'll do it. If we don't, we won't do it. So,
Yep.
yeah. So I think that's great.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And I think that, working on the housing production plan, it will be a way that will, sort of give us the impetus to be doing some broader outreach and to get other people's input. So we might have a broader group working as a committee on the housing production plan. It doesn't have to be just the trust members.
I agree. And I would say, I would go so far as to say, whoever does the plan, I'm assuming it'll be a consultant. I would like to see a delta from the last report to the new report to show the remarkable changes that have happened in the city, right? So not just here's what it is today, but here's what it was during the last round of research.
Great, good
Good
idea.
idea.
Okay, so do we want to talk about, before we talk about approval of minutes, do we want to talk about, since we've been talking about our next meeting, do you want to try to figure out a date? Suzanne, you were saying, well, do you have any thoughts on that in terms of timing?
Yeah, what do we have, Caitlin? Do you have the schedule yet?
Well, I
22?
put it, oh gosh, well, let's see. I put in the staff report. Let's see, there we go. I put in there well, I thought, to go into the new year, we'll have some, some changes, the new administration competing with historical commission meetings. I think the best day to me, if it's not too late, is January 20th.
I think that's good. I think that gives us a little bit of a runway too, to get some other things done.
Okay. Does that work?
That works. Is
Okay.
anyone using, where would we do the senior center or council chambers, or where would you suggest we meet? In person?
I'll have to do a little bit of having some discussion to see what would be best. I know wherever we are, we'll probably all will be in masks.
Yeah.
So we'll have to contend with that. But so I guess I would say meeting location to be determined as soon as possible.
Great.
Okay. I guess one other item I would bring up is that for the housing production plan, I reached out to the Community Preservation Coalition just to confirm, which I think we already knew, but that we could use CPA funds, to hire a consultant to do, the plan for us. I guess my question is, do we want to submit something this round, which is due in February? Or do you think that's too early? How long did the last plan take you?
6 months to a year. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was a process. It's
Yeah.
definitely a process.
But so when does the current plan expire? Is it the end of 22?
It expires October 2023.
Oh,
Mm.
okay. Interesting. Okay. Huh. Can we, yeah, it might be a little too early.
Okay, so think about it, let me know, but the applications for this upcoming grant round are due beginning of February.
Yeah, and I think we'll have a better sense of where we are with both rental assistance and rehab if we can take the knots out of that rehab program and figure out why it's being administered by a completely different area. Like that's like I've got my eyes on that. I would love
Right.
to solve for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because preservation is as important, right? We want to make sure people are doing what they can.
Right. Okay,
But
so I'll check
Caitlin,
back
you bring
in
up-
next month. Sorry.
You bring up a good question of our next application to the CPC and what do we envision for that? And I don't know whether the housing rehab program would be, if I don't know what the limit is in terms of assistance per household in our current program. I don't know if we raised the limit, if that's what would make the difference, or if it's really an implementation problem or both. But if we could make it so that it was CPA eligible, would that be a good idea?
Well, let's see. So the CPA, so the housing rehab program already has 50,000 from CPA that they haven't
there you
touched
go.
in the past 5 years.
Okay.
So
So it's-
perhaps, so that's something to think about, but also perhaps, during one of our earlier meetings, maybe the January meeting, perhaps it would be, and we can kind of sort some things out by then, perhaps it would be a letter to the CPA asking for a grant extension with like a modified scope if we realize there could be something else tweaked to the program to make it more
Okay.
usable.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to take down all those crazy restrictions. We need to increase the amount. What is it now? 7,500? I forgot.
Yes.
But
Yep.
yeah, we need to do much better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good. See, we have a project for Q1 already.
Right. So at some point, Caitlin, maybe you can feed us some of the program parameters, guidelines, and details.
Yeah, there has been a long time program manager who that's her, I think her basically her job with the city. So I think, next time we talk about it in depth, we definitely need to have her present. So
That'd be great.
okay, I'll try and invite her to an upcoming meeting.
Okay. So January 20th would be a time to talk about that, and also all the things I just mentioned, just to sort of try to scope out what our timeline for the housing production plan. It sounds like it's not that urgent, but we want to maybe start looking for a consultant. I don't know, maybe that's premature too.
I think it sounds premature, to tell you the truth. That's the way consultants work, is they're, it's too far out.
I would think if funds for the next grant round don't get, appropriated by city council until next June, and then they become kind of available, that November, then we're looking at a year. So
Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, you might want to think about applying this grant round to give yourself some breathing room. Otherwise, if you wait till the next one, you'd be getting the funds right when this one expires.
Right.
And you probably want the next one ready for when this one expires, I think.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
So last time, did we, when we worked with, is it Karen Sonnenborg?
Yes.
It was 20,000, I'm kind of remembering.
I'll have to go back and look.
I want to say
25.
25, but
I thought it was more. I thought it was 35.
And maybe 30 or 35. Yeah.
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 All right, so yeah, Caitlin, if you could look into that, and of course,
I will.
everything's more expensive now, because that was a long time ago. All right, excellent. So should we look at the minutes? I have to admit, I have not had a chance to review
I
them.
looked at them and it's, I know Karen, Madeline and I can vote. We still had our smaller group at that point. So no Judy, no Donna. But yeah, the second set, I'm not sure. Caitlin, can you tell us?
I'm looking, let's see.
yeah, okay.
Okay, let's see. So the June minutes, we had Madeline, Suzanne, Karen, and the mayor there. So I think perhaps, let's see, I think we need 3 to vote on each of these. So I think perhaps if Madeline, you can't vote on them, then we need to table them.
Yeah, if I was present, I would like to not vote tonight because like I said, I haven't had a chance to review them, but there was a meeting where I was not in attendance. And so if you have the minutes from that and people are comfortable approving them, then go for it.
We can table if you want.
We'll table.
Okay, table.
We have the
confess I
recording. We have the recordings posted, anyways, in case people need to go back and listen to the meeting. So.
I didn't read them carefully either. I kind of glanced at them. so,
Okay.
yeah, make a commitment to read them before the next meeting and be able to.
Yeah.
do or
I
whatever.
thought I was going to get to it. It just didn't happen.
Yeah, same here.
Okay. Anything else?
48 minutes, Madeline. You done good?
Well, I want to follow your great style, so don't want to rush. We didn't talk about ice cream flavors, so I feel a little bad about that.
Well, we'll have another icebreaker for our January meeting when everybody's around the table.
Yes.
Oh, wait, hold on. There is a question from someone in the audience.
Okay.
Marianne.
Hi, Marianne.
Marianne.
Let's
Can you hear
see.
me?
Yes.
Yep.
Good.
Hello.
I just wanted to see if you heard about the Afghan evacuees coming.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Because they have a lot of needs. Now, I know they're not residents. They're going to be here short term while they look for permanent housing, while somebody looks for permanent housing. But I didn't know if they would qualify for anything.
So we don't do grant, well, it depends where they're being temporarily housed at St. Paul's, right?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I think it will depend on when and where they are housed permanently,
Okay. All right.
is
I just wanted to
my
clarify
guess.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then at that point, I guess we can determine what might work. But I
Okay.
know they're looking for a lot of items, beds and furniture and clothing and everything. So
Exactly.
if everyone hasn't had a chance to check out the requests, it's, I believe, on the St. Paul's website. Marianne, is that
It's
correct?
not. I looked for it.
Oh.
They're so busy getting ready that they haven't been able to do it. I'll be glad to send out the letter from Jared Merce, Father Jared, about it, though.
Okay,
That
great.
would be great.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank
right.
you. That'd be helpful.
Thank you for bringing that up too.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think Suzanne's right. I agree. I mean, if they were able to get an apartment in Newburyport, then our first and last month's rental assistance would be something that would be available to them.
Okay.
But, our housing assistance is, our funds are really sort of targeted to providing housing assistance rather
Right.
than just sort of overall emergency assistance.
Yeah, I just didn't know if they would enter a funny category that would make them eligible for something.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to raise the question, that's all.
Right. Well, I'm glad you did.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else, anyone?
Nope.
Okay.
Have
Well-
a great, happy holiday season, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. And thanks, Caitlin, for all your work.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. All right, bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.